Are you considering a move to Florida? Many people are, but many people don't like living in Florida and are moving out of the state of Florida. So I've heard a lot of reasons why people move to Florida and why some people don't like Florida and are moving out of Florida. In this video, I'm going to go over my top 10 reasons why people are leaving Florida. And there's going to be some reasons that you haven't heard before. These reasons come from my actual clients and customers that I have worked with over the past 36 years. They're not just something I've researched online. These are first-hand accounts of why people are leaving Florida. If you're considering a move to Florida, you need to hear this. Let's go. Welcome to the Living in Melbourne, Florida channel. My name is David Jelinek, and I'm a local real estate agent here in the Melbourne, Florida area, which is also known as the Space Coast. Please know that I make videos that are all about the Melbourne, Florida area, what it's like to live here, what it's like to work here, what it's like to play here. The food, the beaches, the entertainment, the real estate, and much, much more. I've lived in this area for almost 40 years. I've been a realtor for 36 years. I know this area very well. I've sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties in this area, and I want to tell you the story about Melbourne, Florida. Won't you consider hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button, click that little bell. That way you'll be notified every time I drop a new video just like this about Melbourne, Florida. And hey, I'm getting contacted almost every day from people all across the country, people who are considering a move to the Melbourne, Florida area, and I absolutely love it. If you're wanting an experienced agent that can help you with your move to this Melbourne, Florida area, you've got the right person. Give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, and I'll be happy to help you and address any concerns and needs that you have. Let's get on to the video. We're here in 2023, and as you've probably heard, a lot of people are moving to Florida. In fact, there's almost 1,000 person increase net per day. People moving into the state of Florida. But there's reasons why people don't like Florida. Not everybody likes Florida, and there's reasons for that. So in this video, I'm going to go over those reasons. So many of the reasons kind of come together. There's usually not just one reason why people are leaving Florida. Usually there's a combination of reasons, but sometimes there's just one. But the main reason people leave Florida isn't on this list, and that's the fact that people get transferred out of the state for work reasons. Okay, well, that's not a reason people leave because of Florida. It's because they get transferred out for job-related reasons. So that reason isn't included here. I'm also going to go over some that did make my top 10 list that you probably have heard on other top 10 lists. So let's get at it right now. Okay, so let's start with my list that didn't make the top 10 list that you may have heard before or thinking about in your mind. So my number one thing that didn't make my top 10 list is bugs, insects, critters, that sort of thing. So yes, Florida has plenty of mosquitoes, bugs, ants, fire ants, roaches, mice, snakes, has a lot of things. Every area has things, however. That's usually not why people leave the state of Florida. There's a lot of annoying things. Mosquitoes are bad at certain times of the year. A lot of annoying things. That didn't make my list. Another thing is, I often hear, well, Florida isn't what they expected. Well, that's usually due to other reasons which are usually found on my list here. Another thing is traffic. So on these lists, anytime you get these lists, it's all relative, because if you're coming from a rural area and you go to a city, the traffic's heavier. If you're coming from New York City here to this area here, then the traffic's very, very light. So it's all relative. So traffic is not on my list, and I'll explain that reason why. So other things you often hear is healthcare and schools, and again, that's all relative. There are good schools here, there are good healthcare systems here. Are they the best in the world? Probably not, but they're still very good here. So some people may have higher standards or want specific things, and they can't find it here. So another thing you often hear is politics. Well, politics, whether you're left or right or in the middle, that's everywhere. So yes, Florida over the last 20 years has become increasingly red. There's no doubt about that. But there's plenty of left and right here in Florida. There's plenty in the middle. So I have not found through my clients that they're leaving just because this is a red state or a blue state. That might be the opinion of some, but it's not on my top 10 list. So those are just some of the things that didn't make my top 10 list, but are something that's often cited or considered as reasons why. Let's get to my top 10 list now. Okay, so these are my top 10 reasons why people are leaving the state of Florida. And this comes from my 35 years of experience of selling property here in the Space Coast. And they're not in any particular order, but number one on my list is just the cost of living. So the cost of living, the pricing of homes in the past 7 years has basically doubled. The values of homes have doubled in the last 7 years, and the prices of rental housing has doubled over the past 7 years. So that's a significant increase. Florida always used to be the place where lower cost of living, and it is still lower compared to some areas. So it is not the highest in the country, but it's not the lowest. It's much higher than it used to be. So there's been a lot of people have come to this area to come and rent for the first year, then want to buy. In the last few years, I've had a lot of those renters say, things are just, I can't get what I want now. And I've had a few actually decide to go somewhere else because the pricing was a little bit too high for them here. So that is one of the big reasons, is just the cost of housing and the cost of living is much higher than it used to be here in the state of Florida. So another reason people leave the state of Florida, and this goes with the cost of living, but it's got to have its own special category, is the cost of insurance. The cost of homeowners insurance, the cost of car insurance goes into the cost of living. The homeowners insurance is just in a crazy state right now. You can definitely get home insurance, but the cost of home insurance has doubled and tripled and even quadrupled in some cases here in certain areas around Florida and even here in the Space Coast. And that is due to many factors. I have my own video here on insurance, but car insurance is also a problem. Car insurance quite often will be up to 50% higher on average than it is in the nation, the average cost in the nation for car insurance. So both are higher when it comes to living here in the state of Florida. That has caused just, again, the cost of living to go up, and has caused many to say with fixed incomes or just any kind of income to say, it's a little bit too expensive here based on what I can earn, and I've got to look at other areas of the country. Okay, my next reason for people leaving Florida is the weather. Okay, so again, weather from the panhandle of Florida to the tip of Key West will vary greatly. So I'm basically going to talk about here the central area, the Space Coast area that I'm in here in the Melbourne, Florida area. And on average in the summer temperatures are in the low 90s, and they'll be in the low 90s for a good half of the year. They'll be in the upper 80s for another quarter of the year. And then during the winter months, they will get down to low 70s for highs. So we really relish our winters here when it gets down to get out of the heat for 2 or 3 months. And on average here in the Melbourne area, we'll see 2 to 3 days where the temperature will drop below freezing on average. Okay, so that again, will vary greatly between the panhandle and down in Key West. But a lot of people get here and they just find out they just can't stand the heat. They can't stand the humidity. So the humidity is around again for almost the entire year. You'll see it when fronts finally come through in the winter time here. Yes, we'll get low humidity and it feels great. Being from Chicago, I don't mind the cold weather. But again, you're not going to get that much of it here. You do get a little bit of change of seasons, but you don't get the major change of seasons. So I always say here in Florida or here in the Melbourne area, we get summer, and a little bit of fall/winter. We don't get the spring, summer, fall, and winter seasons here. So if you want the change of seasons, if the heat and the humidity might be too much for you, I've had people leave the state of Florida because of those factors. And if those factors concern you, you may not like Florida. Okay, so the next on my list is population increase. No surprise, again, a lot of people move to Florida every day. This affects a lot of the people that have been here for a long time in Florida. They're used to smaller towns. They see people moving to their town every day. The area's growing and growing and growing. So you got more demand on products, you got more traffic, you got more congestion, a lot of everything. So I've had a lot of people over the last 5-10 years saying, Florida's just growing too much, getting too expensive. I'm out of here. I'm going to cash out, move somewhere it's less costly and less taxes, that sort of thing. So population increase is a big reason why a lot of people are moving from the state of Florida. Okay, next on the list for reasons people leave Florida is hurricanes and storms. So again, hurricanes are always a threat to the state of Florida. I was an ex-meteorologist here at the Kennedy Space Center, worked the launches, worked forecasting for that. So I know the area very well. This is the lightning capital of the world. For hurricanes, this area has been very fortunate. It's one of the lower areas percentage chance for hurricanes to come through and strike here in the state of Florida, here in the Brevard County area. We've had a few close calls over the last 10 years. So you're always going to have that worry of storms coming through. There's no doubt about it. Some years, none. Some years, there's going to be 1 or 2. And for some people, that is a little bit too frightening. So even if you live in the middle of the state, if you live in Orlando, the middle of the state, you can get hit. I mean, they got hit very hard by Charlie back in 2004, I believe is what it was. So, and then other areas have come through. Ian just came through the middle of the state here this last year. So storms can be a problem. Hurricanes can definitely be a problem. not even talking about flooding, that sort of thing. But hurricanes are definitely always a concern. You have to have your evacuation plan. But I have had sellers over the last 35 years say, you know, we just don't like it. We don't like that threat over our heads. We are just wanting to leave the state to go somewhere else. You know, every area has its things, though. There's tornadoes in the Midwest. There's earthquakes in other areas. But again, storms are a concern to some people. And if that's a concern to you, then Florida may not be the right place for you. Okay, next on my list is one you may not have heard about, and that is neighbors. So I actually have had a few sellers over the years just say, you know, I came down here and it just wasn't friendly down here. The neighbors just don't talk. They stay to themselves, and I just like going back somewhere else where I'm used to. So I've heard that more than once, and I understand what they're saying. So Florida is a melting pot of a lot of different people, a lot of different ethnicities, a lot of different people from all over the world, all over the country here, coming down here. So there's sometimes, you know, people just like to stay to themselves. And again, I get that too. It's a personal thing. Some people like to have a neighborhood community and share with all the neighbors, and I like that, but then I've seen the opposite way too. So, you know, this is one that you have to make it what you want to make it. So I've talked to people that said, yeah, the people just aren't friendly here. Well, if you go out and try to talk to your neighbors, well, no. Well, then if you want to be friendly with your neighbors, then go out and talk to your neighbors. But again, so this is what has come up more than once to me over my 30-some years, is that some people say that it's not friendly, that they're not outgoing enough, that they stay to themselves. Well, you make of what would you make of it? So, but again, this is one reason why people have left the state of Florida. I have found is that the neighbors, they say, aren't friendly enough, and that is one reason. Okay, next on my list is low wages and salaries. So again, you know, back in the day, 20 years ago, Florida was the place to come because low cost of living. Yeah, your incomes may be lower, but the cost of living was lower. And again, it is still lower. It is the cost of living here in this area, in the Melbourne, Florida area, is lower than the national average by about 6 percentage points. So, but that has gone up over the years. It used to be below 90%, meaning it was 10% less than the national average. So it has gone up. There's no doubt about it. Salaries down here have always been known to be kind of below average a little bit. Now, some are not. Here being at the Kennedy Space Center, you have a lot of engineers, you have a lot of technical. Those are all above average salaries for the most part. But on average, the nation average, the salaries are a little bit below average. So I've had people just come here, work, and just decide, you know, the salaries just aren't enough here and I need to go somewhere else. And that has been a reason why people have left the state of Florida. Okay, next on my list for why people leave the state of Florida is HOAs. Okay, so, you know, HOAs are very dominant here in the state of Florida. So almost any neighborhood that was built after 1990 belongs to an HOA. And there's a reason for that, because, you know, when they build neighborhoods, they want to have rules, and they have to have certain requirements, and then they have fees with that. So when you come down here in the state of Florida, if you buy in an older area or a rural area, sometimes they won't have HOA fees, they won't have rules, so you can still find that. But if you're in a newer neighborhood, then they generally are. If you're in a neighborhood that has smaller lots, developing an HOA or a housing unit development, they're going to have HOA. So some people come down here and they get into it and they just don't like the nitpicky stuff. Some neighborhoods have worse than others. They just don't like the nitpicky stuff of the association looking over your shoulder and saying, well, you got to cut your lawn more, you got to have your trees trimmed a little bit better, you can't have a little bit of mildew on your house, can't have mildew on your roof. This is one biggie that people sometimes just throw their hands up and say, I had enough. I don't want to have the rules. I don't want to have the fees. I just want to get out of here. Many areas in the state of Florida, not only in the Melbourne area here, but in the state of Florida, have HOAs, and that can become a problem. And that hasn't been a problem for people wanting to leave the state of Florida. Okay, so here's another reason why people leave the state of Florida, and that's because they miss their family. You get a lot of people that come down here to retire in the state of Florida, and they think it's going to be great, and they do love it down here, but they find that they miss their grandkids, they miss their kids, and they're located somewhere else in the United States. And I've had this is one of actually the big reasons. Now, sometimes people will retain their residence down here in Florida, but they'll buy back where they were and they'll go back and forth, or sometimes they just go back and be with their kids and grandkids. So this is one big reason why people leave the state of Florida, is just because they miss family. Now, sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes a family will come down here, be working and everything else, and maybe they need their family, their extended family, to help with their kids, or they just maybe miss their family. I've had more than one where their entire family of cousins and uncles and brothers, sisters live up somewhere else. They move down here because of a job transfer. They just don't like it. They want to be back by family, so they go back and find a job back in their original spot. So missing family actually is a big reason why people leave the state of Florida. Okay, so my last of my list of 10 reasons people leave the state of Florida is tourists. So this really just depends on where you live. So in many areas of Florida, of course, there are big tourist traps and that'll increase traffic. Here in Brevard County in the Space Coast, yeah, we do get some tourists. It's not a heavy tourist stop. Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral, Satellite Beach, they're not heavy tourist areas, but they do get tourists. So I, again, have had people who live on the beach, Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral, and they increase traffic and they just get tired of it. Or they just move here thinking they're going to love life on the beach, and they do. But, you know, just like many areas of Florida, they're getting more crowded and bigger. And this is just a little bit too big for me now, and I just want to move somewhere else. So tourists is part of the increase of traffic, is part of the population increase problem, but it's a little more specialized because you get down here and it's just crazy, a little more crazy for a couple months or so. With tourist season being down here between, say, December and April or May, it gets a little more crowded. So those are my top 10 reasons why people are leaving the state of Florida. There's many good reasons to be here in the state of Florida, and a separate video will be had for that. But if you don't like some of these reasons here, then maybe Florida's not right for you. Consider those. Again, if you have any questions, my name is David Jelinek. I'm a local real estate agent here in the Melbourne, Florida area. I've been selling property for 35 years. I've sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes in this location. If you're looking to buy in this area, I can explain the whole area to you, find out if this area is right for you, and if it is, I'll find the right property for you. But you got to call, you got to email me, or you got to text me. Otherwise, I can't help you. Thanks again for watching. See you on the next video.